Hey, good morning, good morning, good morning, ladies and gentlemen of fourth period. Today, what I'll be doing is I will be going through the slides for old growth. You'll see lesson 8 when you open the slides for the materials today. You will see that lesson 8 is what role do old growth forests and tree plantations have? Okay, so I'm going to go through those slides and sort of talk about what your assignment is for the day. Now, these slides do include some speaker note questions. I know that I started giving a lot of speaker note questions underneath the slides, and then I sort of backed off because there wasn't too many questions to be asked. There are a couple things that I want you to do throughout these slides, so make sure that you're checking the speaker note section, and I'll bring those up when we get to them. So that's what we have going on today. So I'm going to sort of describe old growth forest, tell you what you got to get going, tell you what you got to do. Then I'm going to let you go do it. So far, so good with all of this stuff. I appreciate everybody eventually clicking on and watching the video, even if it's just some of the video or whatever. Hopefully it's helping you a little bit through the slides and explaining a little bit if some of those slides are confusing, because some of these slides have a lot of words on it, and I just like breaking it down so you understand what it means. So if you need my videos to do the work, that's good. If you don't need my videos to do the work and you can just go through the slides and you can answer the questions and you can get done what you need to get done, that's good too. So, look at it as a tutorial if need be, as usual, right? Okay, so I am on slide 1, which is the title. It says, what role do old growth forests and tree plantations have? And then, of course, slide 2, as always, is the agenda. And then slide 3 is a review from the integrated pest management. That's what we did the last set of slides. There was already a quiz on that, so if you want to review that just for fun, you may. You do need to remember what it is for the unit test, of course. The review goes on to slide 4 for integrated pest management. And then slide 5 is the objective. And the objectives today are to be able to explain the significance and inherent value of old growth forests and to explain the role of tree plantations in forestry. Okay. So on the objective slide, on slide 5, there are 2 videos. I definitely want you to watch them. They're only a couple minutes each. Okay. The first one, old growth forest, definitely explains well what an old growth forest is and what an old growth forest isn't. Okay, so I definitely want you to watch that video. I want to say it's only I thought it was a minute 17 or maybe 2 minutes at most. And then there's the next intro video, which is the world's tallest tree, which is a really, really interesting video. Again, only a couple minutes long. Right. So check out those 2 videos. They'll give you a lot of information. Slide 6 is where we start. Slide 6, actually, these are just sort of wow information slides. But slide 6, the president. The president is a tree that is so big that it took 126 frames to properly capture its 247 feet of glory. Okay, so this is one of the biggest trees in the world. This tree is more than 3,000 years old, which is pretty cool. And if you look, it says, can you find all 3 climbers, right? So I see one climber on the ground in the orange shirt, right, in the orange jacket. And then if you go to slide 7, you can see a little bit more up the tree. I had a little bit harder time finding the climber in that slide, but I'll let you try to find him. And then if you move to slide 8, it shows you a picture even further up the tree. And then slide 9 shows you the top of the tree. So it took, so these 4 slides sort of take pictures of the sections of the tree. And of course, when you're looking at slide 9 and you're looking at the very top of the tree, you can see the guy in the orange jacket again, way at the top, right? And then slide 10 is really cool because slide 10 is the entire tree and it shows you kind of where those climbers were in those pictures. So again, this tree is huge. Took 3,000. This tree is 3,000 years old. It's almost 250 feet high. It's kind of insane. So there's a lot of trees that are similar to this, mostly in the Pacific Northwest. So Washington, Oregon, the coast of California, the northern coast of California, right? You've ever heard of redwoods, right? from the Gulf Stream water to the redwood forest, right? So redwoods, giant sequoias, these trees are massively enormous, and they're very resilient, so they can live a very, very long time. Slide 11. All right, so here is a slide that looks like a timeline. It is showing you what an old growth forest is, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a forest that has old growth in it, okay? So when you look at this timeline on slide 11, you'll see that, and again, I don't have it enlarged, so I can't see too much, but you see year one, like from year one to year 15, you see bare soil and you see little herbs and grasses coming up through the ground, right? And then from year 15 to sort of 30 years there, you see saplings, right? And saplings are just small trees that are young and are not very large in diameter. And you'll see shrubs and stuff like that. Around 60 years, you'll see a young forest. You'll see trees, right? Trees that we would see pretty much around here, the size, okay? And then once you get past, and that goes from 60 to 200 years, they call that a young forest and a maturing forest. Once you get to year 200, anything over 200 years is considered old growth, all right? So here's the little weird thing about old growth. It doesn't mean that everything in that forest is 200 years old or 700 years old or 750 years old. That's why I want you to watch that first video on the objectives. It really explains it well. In an old growth forest, you can have trees as old as 3,000 years old, like we saw with that with the president tree. But there's always new growth in a forest as well. So in an old growth forest, you have things that are that old, that have been around for that many years. But you also have in the lower, right, in the lower sections of the forest, you have trees and shrubs that are constantly growing and being eaten by animals or being taken down by winter or soil conditions or whatever the case may be. And then you have new growth in that old growth forest as well. But the basis of it, right? It's old and it contains old growth trees and things like that as well. All right. So an old growth forest is one that has been around for more than 200 years. Slide number 12. Slide 12 is something that I want you to do. Slide 12, I want you to find a picture of an old growth ecosystem and just link it right there on the speaker notes. Slide 13, I also want you to find a map of an old growth forest here. So I want you to link a picture of a section of the planet where there is an old growth forest, a map, okay? There might be a world map that you can Google, and the world map would say old growth forests across the globe, and it may show you where they are located, all right? Or just give me one location, and that would be fine. Throughout this slideshow, you'll find some of these locations, so it should be easy for you to Google. Slide 14. Okay, so slide 14. Old growth forest, right? So if you cut an old growth forest, if you cut it down, if you clear cut it, if it burns down, whatever, if an old growth forest is cut, it will naturally restart, obviously, to form after it has gone through the stages of forest succession. We've used that word before, succession, right? Primary and secondary succession. We're talking about secondary succession here. If you have an old growth forest and you cut it down or it burns down or whatever, and there's nothing there, you will have secondary succession, right? But it has to go through all of the stages that we just saw on that timeline before it can be considered old growth again, right? It has to be around for 200, 400, 500 years for it to be old growth, right? And the thing about old growth forests is the wood is often used for construction. So the trees are typically larger. They've been around for a longer time. They are more solid. The wood is good wood to harvest and use for construction purposes. Okay, so that's another reason why old growth would get cut down, is because it's very usable for us. And when you hear about clear cutting and things like that, that's usually what's happening, is we're cutting down the old mature trees for that good wood, and you get a lot of wood out of one tree. So it's just an economical way to do it. So when you cut them, they're gone. They're gone for 200 years, right? You're not going to get any more old growth for a very, very long time. Alternatively, you'll see on slide 14, the desired trees can be directly replanted or seeded in a plantation and then recut when mature enough for timber. All right. So if you cut down an old growth forest, if you clear cut it, if it burns down, whatever the case may be, in order for it to come back naturally, according to that timeline, it takes over 200 years to get that old growth right back. What you can do, and there's problems with the second time, right? With secondary succession, old growth, you'll see in the video from the objectives, definitely watch that first video. It says that there's problems. When you cut down old growth and then it comes back as secondary succession, it comes back differently, all right? So the forest will grow differently after secondary succession. The old growth forest grows in a way where there's big trees and there's medium trees and there's little trees and there's shrubs. And because of it, the mixed matched sizes of everything, sun can penetrate and sun can get down to the floor of the forest, which is important because that's where the trees and the food for all the animals grow, right? So in a real natural old growth forest, that's what happens. But when you cut down an old growth forest and it grows back as secondary, typically things grow back a lot thicker and the same size. So as the canopy is all growing at the same size, not a lot of sun can get through and hit the ground. So you don't get a lot of ground plants and ground shrubs and ground food for the animals. So a secondary old growth forest isn't the same thing. It's definitely not as habitable, able to be lived in for a lot of animals. All right. So the secondary old growth isn't ideal. But again, like I just read, what you could do is a lot of people will start tree farms, right? And that's a very common thing. And you can take the seeds from these massive trees, from these old growth trees, and you can replant them in a what they call a tree plantation, which is like anything. It's a big open space where you grow trees, right? They do this with Christmas trees. They'll grow Christmas trees on a big farm and wait until they're the right size and they'll cut them down and sell them, right? Well, same thing with this old growth wood. They can actually make these huge plantations that are thousands and thousands of hectares, acres large, and they grow trees there. That's what they do. I mean, that must be a boring job. You plant the trees and then just sit there, right? But those trees obviously take a long time to grow, but it doesn't take as long to get. It doesn't take 200 years. You can get usable wood for harvesting, for construction and everything. You can get that in a lot shorter time than if you just let things happen naturally. You can just actually make these plantations where they grow, and you can get a lot of trees at one time. All right, so that's what tree plantations are. So slide 15 talks a little bit about tree plantations, and there's a map you can look at. It gives you some ideas of where things are. Tree plantations, they're not good, they're not bad, right? So they're sort of harmless. If you have the open space to grow these trees for harvesting wood, that's not a bad thing. You're almost recycling, or kind of, I think like a water cycle and a nitrogen cycle. I think like kind of like a tree cycle, right? I mean, if you're using the wood and then replanting and using the wood and replanting, that's not a terrible thing to do, right? But it does depend on their scale. It depends on their aimed objective and the type of plantation it is, as well as the natural and socioeconomical environment. Okay, so what all that means is it's not that they're good or bad, it's that they do take up a lot of space. Okay, so if you're going to do it on a large scale, you take up a lot of space. And if you take up a lot of space, then that's space that you can't use for other things, right? So that's space that you can't use for farming. So there's an economic impact there, right? When you make these forests, like I said, they all grow the same size and there's not a lot of sunlight hitting the ground. So there's not a lot of shrubs and animals in these plantation type tree farms. So the environment is affected, where if there were any animals in that area, now they're not really living there because all the ground stuff sort of doesn't grow like it should, right? And that's what they eat. So there's a lot of different things. And again, even if it's on such a large piece of land to grow all these forests, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, that's somewhere where you can't live. So humans wouldn't be able to really inhabit that area either. So I think the major tick on this thing is that it takes up a lot of space. All right. And if that's okay, that's okay. If there's space, we got it. And that's a good thing. But if it's impacting other stuff, it's not the best idea. And then we have slide 16. Slide 16. Here is the biggest problem with tree plantation. So again, they're not good, they're not bad. Obviously, they're trees and they're helping, recycle carbon dioxide and provide oxygen. So that's good. And they do take up space, so that could be a potential problem. But here's the biggest thing. They're uniform. They're very on a large scale. They're very uniform. All right. So, in the second bullet, it says at the national level, they consist of scores of thousands of hectares, thousands and thousands and thousands of acres, and in such cases such as Chile, South Africa, Brazil, Indonesia, surpassing a million hectares of tree monocultures. All right. So that's the worst word there in that second thing. The last word in the second bullet is monoculture. Right. We talked about monocultures and we talked about polycultures. I remember I was outside filming the video across the street by my church when I was talking about flowers. If you have a monoculture, another way to say that is there's not a lot of genetic diversity. All those trees are the same. Okay. You are definitely, like it says in that last bullet point, you are definitely susceptible to pests and diseases as a monoculture, right? So you have millions and millions of hectares of these tree plantations, or not secured area, protected area for these trees to grow in Chile and South Africa and Brazil and all these places. But they're all genetically the same. So if a disease starts that ruins the leaves and kills the tree or ruins the trunk of the tree, it's going to spread through all of them. There's nothing really you can do about it unless you cure it, but that would be very difficult to do. Also with pests, if there is a bug that burrows into the tree and damages the tree in some way, those pests are going to go nuts. It's going to be like, yay, look at all this, 1 million hectares of us to just kill. So it's a problem when you have a monoculture because you don't have that. I said genetic diversity, I meant biodiversity, but it's the same. It's similar. So you have no biodiversity when you have a monoculture, and that's a problem with tree plantations because they grow similar trees in the same area, right? It also changes the soil and the flora and the fauna, which is just the plants, the low-lying plants, right? So it results from what it does is it ends up changing the soil. It changes the composition or the nutrients in the soil, and it makes that soil not as good or as healthy for other things to grow, like the fauna and the herbs and the shrubs. So you're not gonna, the animals won't suffer, but the animals won't really want to live there because there won't be a lot of good food sources. All right. So these tree plantations, you look at it as a good thing because they're trees and we're not ruining that. But we are having some issues with the tree plantation things. Okay. All right. Slide 17 is where the guided practice is. So this is what you do, right? So through this, you have a couple videos to watch that are only a couple minutes. You have a couple slides where you have to go find some links to some maps and such and post them. And then you have this, which is the guided practice. I want you to watch this video. It's called Survivors of the Firestorm. It's actually good. I watched it yesterday. I put the link. You can find it in a few places, but I put the YouTube link right in the speaker notes. I want you to watch up to 16 minutes. Okay, so you watch it from 0 to 16 minutes. Then when you see on slide 18, there is a question for you to answer. And it says, given the severity of Black Saturday, which you don't know what that is because you didn't watch the video yet, shown in the video, what advantages do you think the mixed old growth forest will display over what would have occurred with a plantation or monoculture? So there is a thing called a mixed old growth forest. And I want you guys to watch this video up to 16 minutes or so and answer the question. You can answer the question. I want a real answer. I don't want just like 1 or 2 words. So write a couple sentences and make me happy. I want you to write it right in the speaker notes, and then you can turn in this whole slideshow, and everything that you've done is on this slideshow. All right. So that would be the easiest thing for you guys to do. So again, go through the slides, watch the video. If you're confused by the slides while you look at them, I walk you through them in a quick, 15 minutes? No big deal. You have a couple videos to watch. You have a couple slides where you have to add some links in the speaker notes. And then you have slide 17 and 18 is where you watch 16 minutes of a video and answer this question on slide 18. All right. That's all I have for you, unless there's any questions. the grades for the quiz should be going up shortly. After my 3 classes today, that's what I'm going to get to. And that's about it. I don't really have anything new or exciting to talk about. So I'm just going to let you go, and you have 30 minutes or so to get this stuff done. All right. Don't forget, you are turning in that quiz. If you turn it in late, some of you did turn it. Well, I didn't even grade it yet, so technically it's not late. But some of you, just to cover yourselves, which is very good, some of you have sent me a private message as soon as you're done with it, and you just write done, and that's good. All right. Miss you too, Axel. All right, but I'm going to let you guys go and get this done. Watch the video again if you came in late, or if you need a little help on what to get done. I'm here all day. Private message me if you have any issues whatsoever, and I will talk to you guys soon. Got to get ready for my next class. See you later.